What type of installation could be welcomed in Burkina Faso? We wanted, even if it's a small nuclear power plant, which can really produce energy in quantity. Because as I said, it's not only Burkina Faso that will benefit. In the sub-region, we know our difficulties in terms of electricity. Everyone will need it. So, I think we are a bit at the heart, and there are many countries around that can benefit. What can we wish today for Burkina Faso? For its people to be finally prosperous. What can we wish for Burkina? I think for the whole world, we have to wish for peace first, for the people to come back, for the people to live in peace. And we also wish that people don't interfere in our affairs, because we have capacities. We are not dragged along as some imagine. We are able to walk alone. We don't necessarily need to be held by the hand. If we ask for help, help me cross.
This is the journey to One Africa.
Hello everyone and welcome to the big interview. Today I am joined by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, President of the Burkina Faso transition. Mr. Traoré, hello. Hello. So, a first question to start with. The summit in Russia, Africa, the second edition of this summit, has just ended. What assessment do you draw from these 2 days of meetings, of forums? Okay, hello, and thank you for the opportunity to express ourselves from here. We came to this forum, which yesterday held its epilogue, and we can say that we are very satisfied. The assessment is quite positive, because it was about seeing the prospects for what concerns our states and what also concerns our relations with the Russian Federation. So, we have explored enough areas and there are good prospects.
Donc, on a épluché assez de domaines et il y a de bonnes perspectives.
You were able to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in a bilateral format. What do you remember from this meeting? In a bilateral format, it was about discussing our particular problems, including security and defense issues, but also economic issues, because it goes hand in hand with the economy, development and infrastructure. It goes hand in hand with security issues. So basically, that's what we wanted to discuss. Any concrete results that you can tell us about? The most urgent result for us is the issue of military equipment. So that's what we're on. So, in the coming days, we hope to be able to start the acquisitions and everything. We'll talk about this area a little later, but I would like to ask you a question. You made a statement earlier. You said that the Burkina Faso people supported Russia's special military operation. Can you explain that to us? Of course, it is the right of the people to express an opinion. So the vast majority, I said, supports it. But it's not about focusing on that, because any war is bad. There is no good war. As long as people die, it's not good. We often say that even terrorists who attack us, we want them to drop their weapons and come back to their senses. Because they are young people who are being killed. But if they don't want to drop them, we have no choice. We have to fight them. But we also have a feeling, because the Burkina Faso people have been suffering for 28 years now. People die every day. But since our action, I can tell you that we are also very disappointed with the behavior of some people. And that's what gives us a mixed feeling. In terms of equipment, we can't. Some countries have closed us down and blocked us. So it's a feeling of desolation to see that on the other side. We give enough equipment, which unfortunately ends up on our lands. Disappointed on the part of some of your partners or former partners. Yes, some of our former partners, we must say it clearly. We are very disappointed that we cannot give ourselves a cartridge and that we can support other states that are also fighting. Why can't we support them? But what I say is that it is a shame that these equipment are found on our soil with terrorism. It's not common, so it would be desirable for it to stop right away. Yesterday, during the summit, most of the African states spoke out to find a solution to the negotiation. But what we understood is that there is no will to negotiate with a party. So, it's getting complicated. Of course, we will come back a little later on the military component. But I would first like to have your opinion, in general, on the current state of relations between Burkina Faso and Russia. What are they? So, we must say that the relations are being relaunched. These are relations, as we said, since 1992, the embassy was closed. Currently, there are agreements. It's okay, we will reopen. Diplomats are already in contact, and trade relations must resume, in terms of industry and everything. We discussed a lot of things in our trade relations and everything. So, for example, you were talking about industry. In which areas? In several areas. Agricultural, we talked about it. The mining industry, we talked about it. Infrastructure, a lot of things to build. So you will also qualify Russia as a partner country of Burkina Faso. So, you talked about these perspectives, but how can this be translated concretely? The partnership with Russia is first of all strategic. And concretely, what affects us is also the speed of reaction. First, we must understand that Russia is concerned about the humanitarian situation in Burkina Faso. It must be said, it was one of the states that sent us to eat, to move internally. And they announced yesterday that they were going to send us to move. It's very good that people are concerned, but not all countries are concerned. First of all, about our populations. And on top of all that, in terms of development, we still have a lot of agreements in progress. A lot of memorandums of intent are being signed, and we hope to receive Russian investors soon, economic operators, so that the economic flow can be more profitable for all of us. You said it, the diplomatic component is also important. The fact of reopening the embassy will make the exchanges more simplified between the two countries. Of course, it's very important. Tell me, we already have a lot of compatriots. Russia plans to increase the number of scholarships in various scientific and technological fields in universities. There are already Burkina Faso trainees, and the number will increase. So, of course, we need a diplomatic representation to manage all the administrative aspects and strengthen the cooperation that exists between us. Cooperation all over the world, in all areas. Of course, all possible areas. We are open in all areas. Are there any specific areas where Russia may have had expertise? Where you have more expectations? So we immediately talked about the issue of defense and security. This is our #1 priority. Then we can talk about energy. And we expect a lot from Russia, because Russia is a specialist in a given type of energy. That could be very beneficial for us and for the whole sub-region. Energy independence, because it starts with the energy that the industries can develop. We may want to install factories and everything, but if we don't have energy, it's complicated. So we started on this basis. There are infrastructures, oil products and everything. So there is still a lot of potential. We also have a lot of things to share with Russia. In the agricultural field, there are enough tropical products that Russia needs to export to Russia. To transform on the spot with industries and export. You talk about the energy component, which is indeed very important. More than that, the extraction of raw materials, such as hydrocarbons or the production of electricity. So the production of electricity is very important for us. That's what I was saying. Russia has hydrocarbons to export to us, whether it's all derivatives, products, and especially bitumen for our roads. Because we have very few roads. We need road infrastructure, rails for the train, and everything. We discussed it. So these are priorities for us. We will have to be able to quickly move up a notch in this area. This is what already allows the internal economy to behave well. And the electrical component? What type of installation could be welcomed in Burkina Faso? We want it even if it's a small nuclear power plant, which can really produce energy in quantity. Because as I said, it's not only Burkina Faso that will benefit. In the sub-region, we know our difficulties in terms of electricity. Everyone will need it. So, I think we are a bit at the heart. And there are many countries around that can benefit. So electricity is very important. And so, you had your first contacts with Rosatom, for example. The energy company. Yes, the ministers in question will change. There is a working group that will be put in place to manage all these aspects in general. So now, to evoke a little bit the security situation in your country, when we listen to Western media, and especially French media, the image of the Burkinabe army is not necessarily dazzling. It is accused of all kinds of crimes. Why this image, in your opinion? No, it's logical. The media are also at war. We benefit from it. It's logical for them. But we are not there anymore. Who destructed our armies? That's it. We denounced the fact that we imposed on the state structural programs. The budget of the armies was squarely reduced to zero. We lost everything, in fact. We had no more armies. They prepared 2 decades later these events that we are experiencing today. But terrorism is there. It's the same people who sing that we don't have an army. But in the meantime, where were they? So today, we want to rebuild an army to face it. We are in this phase. We recognize that it was a bit complicated, because it was disorganized. But we know what we are doing, and we can say that we are gaining power. Because the fact of being organized, already having organic units, being able to face the growing threat, I think it's good. The rest, they can say what they want. Because it's also a communication war. When terrorists attack, there is no problem. We don't talk about it too much. We have victories. Suddenly we hear everything about the right to name names. It's their war. So, precisely, this communication war, what impact does it have on the public opinion of Burkina Faso, on the population? I think that the population, the majority, the popular mass, as I said, can easily understand, because they suffer a lot from it. But we must also recognize that colonization has a lot of effects. There are also a lot of people in our country who we call local valets, who also often find themselves in the same areas of these Western media to denigrate their own armed forces, to denigrate their own fighters. It's deplorable, but it's the Burkinabe who do it. So there is a lot of work that we have to do to change the mentality. We have these colonial mentalities that still exist in some, who are always ready to serve the master, this slave behavior. That is to say, internally, within the country? Of course. Of course, there are some within the country who call Western media, even certain reporters who work for them, even if they are Africans, know well what is happening. But they tell what they want. It's deplorable. So, precisely, speaking of this communication war, of this media landscape, how do you see the arrival of Russian media, for example, in Africa, which gives an alternative point of view? The arrival of Russian media, we want media that will bring out the truth of what is happening. So when people, for example, try not to respect human rights, I think that the military, the first thing they defend is the right to life, because they sacrifice themselves to allow civilians to live. When we know that there is death somewhere, the military goes. There is no one who respects the right to life better than the fighting forces. So it is the first right. But if the Russian media bring out the truth of this war, they are welcome. Those who want to lie about this war, we will not, of course, agree. Because the objective for some is to detoxify our populations, to turn against us, and to be able to achieve their clandestine objectives. So we will not allow that. And you don't allow it. You don't allow it. There are channels and radio stations that stop premises. Of course. And it will continue. As long as a media does not bring out the truth, it is not only the media, even national media. I know that some will be censored if they continue in a certain way. That's how it is. They also do it. In Europe, when something is wrong with their feelings, they sanction the media, they close the media. I think that even your media are closed there, right? That's right. That's it. They do their propaganda, but we will not allow them to come and do propaganda in our country. So our population has the right to the right information. And we will go through what we have to go through. Okay, so in a more concrete way now, can you tell us about the security situation on the ground? You are a soldier, you are a man on the ground, precisely. So what is it like today? The security situation, how can I say? We contain it. Because, don't forget something. In a given moment, certainly, there is a terrible attack on the enemy. And the enemy regroups, we don't know how. Currently, we are encountering a certain type of armament, a certain type of ammunition. That's it. We wonder where it comes from. But that's what I said. It may be that it will flow from certain conflict zones to our homes. So currently, we are in the phase of organization and equipment. We can say that we have introduced war because we are questioning the enemy. But the real war, the development, it's going to start soon. So, precisely, what will this second phase be? The second phase will be intense, especially on the ground. Especially on the ground, because we will have to set foot in the sanctuary. We will have to relocate in all the forests where it is. And now, ensure security from a certain line, so that there is no infiltration and everything. Because today, there are many villages, as I said, which were actually occupied or an area under control. But today, there is no such area in Burkina where the army cannot surrender. We're going to leave. No matter, there is no such area where we cannot surrender. But it's about neutralizing in their sanctuary those who can flee, leave the territory, to put a surveillance device to prevent them from infiltrating our territory. There is this problem of porosity between the borders of your neighboring countries. And I imagine that these terrorist groups are playing on this, to take refuge in a neighboring country, the time to reinforce themselves and come back later. How do we solve this problem? Maybe with the authorities of the neighboring countries. We have to be bold. That's it. It's a war. Maybe if there were no external forces, we would have lowered the temperature. But since there are external forces, we have to be bold. When I look, for example, at the Second World War to this day, in the current conflict between Syria and Crimea, we have to be able to build infrastructures that can prevent the enemy from being mobile, from being able to cross our borders. These are physical measures. These can be passive measures. For example, when you look at the front line, there are large fortifications, trenches, many things, many physical obstacles that can be put. At the border level? Of course, we have no choice. We have no choice. During the Second World War, people built anti-walls. If we have to, we will do it. And we have to associate it with many other passive means. It is always necessary to prevent the enemy from being able to play this game. And what are your current relations with neighboring countries that are suffering from the same problems as yours? So, the relations with neighboring countries, with most of them, it's going more or less well. With Mali, the largest border, 1,000 square kilometers, it's going very well, because there is an interloper. There is communication. Yes, very good communication. If we go to Mali, the Malians come to us. There is no problem. With Niger too, we have difficulties, I must say. But we hope that it will be resolved, especially at the moment. Yes. Yes, currently, with the situation that prevails, everything is a bit blurry. We hope to be able to resume operations quickly there, because we also have a large border. But with the countries in the south too, there is no problem. We operate. You talked about the reconstruction of your army. Do you have specific equipment needs today? Of course, we have specific needs because we have to modernize the army. It can't stay. War has to wake us up, actually. We don't have to take it to pity ourselves. We have to take it as a measure that has to boost us. So, when we look at the intensity, we learn from our failures because it's not every day that we win. When we lose, we have to quickly go back to experience. What didn't work? What did the enemy use? And so on. But we have to equip ourselves. And I think that's what we're talking about with the Russian side. So, you just made the wish to diversify your military partnerships. Today, who are these military partners? With whom? Yes, we have new partners that we greet in passing. We have a lot. The Russian Federation is a very good partner. Turkey is also a very good partner. China. Last time I said we even donated. Iran. North Korea. We have a lot of partners who support us, who often give us very interesting things in terms of equipment. And we hope to be able to improve this partnership. For example, is the air component important to you? Very important. Actually, it's one of the parameters that is very important to us. Whether it's surveillance, whether it's attack or combat. Recognition. Recognition, that's it. It's very important to us. And we still maximize on that. And what do you have at the moment? Do you think your needs are met? I told you that we are going to modernize the army. We can't tell you what we have. But we will always take more, because we have to prepare for any eventuality. We don't know what number it could have. So, elections are scheduled for the year 2024. You are president of the transition. The situation, do you have any hope that it can stabilize to be able to maintain these elections in time? We wanted to finish as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we were not given the task. We must recognize them. As I told you, we feel that there are external forces that arm the enemy, that equip it more and more, so our space is constantly frozen. We keep saying that. We don't know why planes come back to Tbilisi, but just to make you believe that it's a logistical delivery. It must stop because we're going to move to another camp. And the more those who demand elections complicate the task, the war will be long. If we want the war to stop, people have to stop this game. So, it depends on them. So, it's first to re-establish security. Because we have to leave this concept of elections. It's not just in the capital. No. Everyone in Burkina Faso has the same title. People must be able to go to all the villages. On the whole territory. On the whole territory. Pass the message of their program. What do they plan to do for Burkina Faso? And that Burkina Faso can choose who they will vote for. Otherwise, it's limited to a small group. When you take the statistics of the past elections. No, it's deplorable. If there are 24 million people on this territory, with 3 million people voting, I don't think it's elections. The popular mass will only suffer, because it's not representative. And at the moment, do you think you have control over what percentage of the territory of Burkina Faso? In terms of percentage, I don't like to talk in terms of percentage, because if we're going to talk about percentage, we can get up today on the ground that people think is red. We go to settle down, and then there's nothing. So I was telling you that there is this part of Burkina Faso that we can't settle down. But we don't want to reinstall populations in certain areas. It's a war, it's a guerrilla. Don't infiltrate, come and cause losses. Because the threat is moving. Very moving, it's a guerrilla. There are free villages, but we don't reinstall them because we have to be patient. Many others are also reinstalled because we are focused on one area to finish a job before going elsewhere, even if we are trying to disperse, and hence the importance of civil infrastructures, like roads, to be able to have these movements, not only of the military, but also of the civilians, to be able to move easily to avoid these terrorist attacks. Of course, roads are very important. We take that, war, road infrastructure and development, especially for an enclosed country like yours, where there is no need for roads. What are the most important axes of your country? There are several important axes. In any case, all national roads, we would like everything to be paved. We think that if we manage to pave as many roads as possible, it will reduce the number of terrorist attacks. Because I said, there are areas that have been enclosed. They produce, but they have no capacity to transport to the capital. Exactly. And then they got frustrated, they revolted. So we hope to be able to pave these roads, even if today terrorism prevents us from being able to pave these roads. But we will force. We will do it. It will benefit them all. It may certainly oppose the European arms, their activities. It is very important. I would like to bring up a new subject with you. You recently received a delegation from the BRICS in Ouagadougou. We talk a lot about it right now. What can this group of BRICS countries to Burkina Faso? Exactly. We even met them here. There are many things in perspective with the BRICS. The BRICS group is made up of a lot of investors from a number of countries. It is not only the 5 countries that make up the BRICS, because there are other countries that have joined, even if the acronym is not in the BRICS. They are investors who come and we discuss certain key areas. We have advanced on many areas, whether it is health, industry, mining, food, a lot of topics. We discuss them. Even road infrastructure. There are investors who are ready to invest. So that's it. These are investors from these countries, or BRICS partner countries, who propose to invest in your country. Of course, since we define the priorities. That's it, with the BRICS. We define our priorities, and they send the necessary partners who want to invest in these areas. In the framework you have defined. Of course, in the framework we have defined. We are formal. There are no more questions of institutions that lend us money or come to invest, so that we always stay in our poverty. It is we who define what we need. You do it according to the conditions that we discussed last summer, and that it is profitable for our people. Can you give us some examples of these priorities? For example, road infrastructure is very important for us. That's really at the top of the list. Of course, it's very important, agri-food, because we have to be able to produce and transform what we want to consume. This is very important to achieve food self-sufficiency. I criticized it yesterday. We have to achieve food self-sufficiency. These are very key issues. There are many other areas: energy, industrialization, many things. On the subject of food security, during the first plenary session of this Russian-African summit, talked about technology transfers. These are things that African countries are asking for, to be able to develop your own agricultural sector so that in the end you are self-sufficient. And even, according to the Russian president, so that you can become an exporter. We're still a long way off, of course. But Russia is proposing to accompany African countries on this road. We're not far off. It depends on us. We talked about it earlier, because these are issues that are important to me. President Putin was quite clear. He produces a lot of agricultural machinery here. So I said, it's good. The cereals we are given are very good, but we want to produce them. And he said, it's good. There are a lot of factories that make agricultural equipment. We also make the entrails here. And I have the same sign. We also have a fertilizer factory that we set up. We also want to do a phosphate exploitation to produce fertilizer. So we want to become a great producer and be able to export. Because we have the chance that almost everything works for us. Even wheat. It works well for us. But unfortunately, our products are not self-sufficient. Of course, this is a statement you made at this summit. I quote you, "Why continue to receive humanitarian aid if we have the potential to be able to feed ourselves, to be self-sufficient?" Of course. That's the purpose. That's the purpose. We don't want, as President Thomas Sankara would say, help that will help us get out of help. We don't want to stay in help forever. We know that today there is a humanitarian situation. The countries give us food and everything. But we want all those who have passed away. We want to be able to give more, because we want to produce. We don't want to continue to receive donations, because it's a form of dependency. It's a dependency. All these NGOs that are operating in our country, it's to keep us in the system. The chronic mandate. We can't continue like this. We have to get people back to work. We have to produce, we have to mechanize agriculture. We have enough potential for that. And besides, throughout this forum, that's what we heard. The words sovereignty, the words partnership, winning, winning. It's really now what African countries want. Yes, a lot of people also say it, but we have to translate that. Sovereignty is good. We can't say that we are sovereign as long as we have time to eat. Food self-sufficiency is something very important for us Africans. When we talk about dignity in a father, when he comes home at night, he has nothing to put on his son's plate. There is no dignity, because his wife is capable of doing anything. There is no dignity as long as you can't feed yourself. So if we have sovereignty, we have to fight to be self-sufficient. That's the message I wanted to pass on. Sure, we will be given, but we have to be self-sufficient. So sovereignty is good. Partnership, winning, winning. We talk about it, but we have to define the terms clearly. For example, we don't want to export our raw products yet. We produce soy, sesame, peanuts. All these are oligarchic products. But we don't want to export them like that. We want to transform and be able to export the oil. We consume it and we export the surplus. With an added value, of course. Otherwise, if we take everything raw, we export it. Look at our quality. It's trivial. It's a natural resource. We export it every month. The others transform. Even chocolate. It's very expensive. Women, cosmetics, and everything. No, we have to stop that. We have to transform. A question to finish. What can we wish today for Burkina Faso? For its people to be finally prosperous. What can we wish for Burkina? I think for the whole world, we have to wish for peace first. For the people to come back. For the people to live in peace. And we also wish that people don't interfere in our affairs. Because we have capacities. We are not dragged along as some imagine. We are able to walk alone. We don't necessarily need to be held by the hand. If we ask for help, help me cross. Yes. But we shouldn't be taken like children who can't walk. We have to hold their hand to show them the way. We don't want people to interfere in our affairs. So it's wishing for peace for all the peoples of the world. And also wishing for non-interference. Wishing for Burkina to be truly prosperous. Mr. Traoré, thank you for answering my questions.
On consomme et le surplus on exporte.
Avec une valeur ajoutée.
Bien sûr. Sinon, si on prend tout en brut, On exporte. Regardez notre noix de qualité, comment c'est banalisé. C'est une ressource naturelle. Mais on exporte toutes les noix. Les autres transforment, même le chocolat de ça revient très cher. Les femmes, les produits cosmétiques et tout. Non, il faut qu'on arrête ça. On doit transformer.
Très bien. Une question pour terminer. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut souhaiter aujourd'hui au Burkina Faso pour que son peuple soit enfin prospère?
C'est qu'on peut souhaiter au Burkina. Je pense que pour tout le monde entier, il faut qu'on souhaite la paix d'abord. Que les peuples reviennent vivre en paix. Et on souhaite aussi que les gens ne s'ingèrent pas dans nos affaires. Parce que nous avons des capacités. Nous ne sommes pas à la traînée comme certains l'imaginent. On est capable de marcher seul. On n'a pas besoin qu'on nous tienne forcément la main. Si on demande de l'aide, aide-moi à franchir, oui. Mais il ne faut pas qu'on nous prenne chaque fois comme des enfants qui n'arrivent pas à marcher. Il faut les traîner la main pour leur montrer le chemin. On ne veut pas que les gens s'ingèrent dans nos affaires. Donc, c'est souhaiter la paix pour tous les peuples du monde et aussi souhaiter la non-ingérence, souhaiter que le Burkina soit vraiment souverain.
Monsieur Traoré, merci d'avoir répondu à mes questions.
Merci.
Et merci à vous de nous avoir suivis.